Hello, Brock.com here. I'm making this video to address the current topic of reducing maps and or modes. I've seen a lot of discussions on this topic surface over the 4 years of this competitive game, and I want to share my opinion on the matter. I think there are some questions that should be addressed in regards to this. 1. What are the goals of reducing the map and mode list among competitive play? 2. What maps and modes should be included and excluded? 3. What should be considered when making these decisions? And 4. Who should make these decisions? Okay, addressing the first question, I personally believe that both the map and mode pull list should be reduced in order to lower the variation that needs to be learned to play at a competitive level and keep it consistent. Lower variation would mean an easier time for newer players to get into the competitive scene, and it would shift the focus for existing players. What I mean by shifting focus is that players will have more time to focus and advance the meta of interplay during matches. This basically means the focus will be more on how to play against other players /teams/comps versus learning every variation for every map and mode. This will not stem the growth of map limit though. In fact, with less maps, more focus can also be put into learning the selected maps on a fundamentally deeper level. This increased level of understanding can help us grow as evaluators, helping us understand the game in general. This means better and increasingly informed decisions on the meta, rules, and data. Addressing the second question and third question, I believe the total variation limit should be 24 and no higher, that being 8 maps and 4 modes. I believe counterpicking maps and modes should be viable. I believe there should be 4 neutral maps that are largely agreed that are mostly fair in how they work, i.e. advantage and disadvantage state, gimmicks, map size, route options, spawn camping, etc. And then 4 counterpick maps. The counterpick maps should be fairly neutral, while also providing enough variance and slight favoritism to help certain tactics, modes, weapons, subs, specials, etc., without being overly dominant in those regards. As for modes, I believe zones is the most balanced of all modes, and as such should be featured as the main mode that starts with the neutral maps. Zones can also be a counterpick mode. The mode I choose as a definite counterpick would be tower control for one reason. Being wiped does not lead into an immediate game-winning push. For example, Rainmaker and Clan Blitz can be volatile in a sense with how easy it is to 100-0 opponents when they are wiped. The fact that tower controls has checkpoints means that there is time for the opposition to collect themselves and defend the objective. Zones also has something similar to this in the form of penalty points, which increases the time the disadvantaged team has to regain control of the objective. Clam does as well, but the objective is player driven and not time driven, thus it doesn't factor in when the opponent just keeps scoring. The maps that make it harder to lose off of one wipe are ideal for modes like Rainmaker and Clan Blitz to be considered. Tower control does get hard controlled by specials like Booyah and Stingray, which has little counterplay, so adjusting for maps that increase that likeliness of this should be up for consideration as well. With all that said, I believe ideally 4 neutral zone maps should be the options for game 1, and the following 4 counterpick maps should be added to the map pull list for game 2 and onwards. One last consideration I think should be map variation based on mode. Example, Piranha Pit is drastically different depending on the mode. These sorts of maps should not be considered due to the extra variance they add in regards to general playstyle, advantage, and disadvantage. Again, the goal is to reduce the variance and keep it consistent. Maps I feel fill my definition of neutral zone are Mako Mart, Starfish Main Stage, Sturgeon, and the Reef. Maps I feel fill my definition of counterpicks are Anchovy, Gobi Arena, Wahoo, and Manta Maria. These are only my suggestions, so I'd like to hear what other people consider the best neutral and counterpick viable maps are. Finally, I'd like to discuss who should be in charge of making the final decisions regarding any implementation of these changes to competitive play. I want to note that all tournament organizers should be free to make their own rule sets and express their thoughts on how participants should play. Players/teams also have the right to choose what tournaments they play, and thus choosing what rule set they support and enjoy. Point being, one general and overall rule set should not discourage new or old rule sets or ways of playing the game at any level. Creativity should always be encouraged. With that said, I believe that the people with the most experience, feedback, understanding, and data, and professionalism should make the final decision. To me, this would be like well-known and respected top players and TOs. I do want to clarify that when I say feedback, I mean the final decisions made are influenced by community feedback. So the community does play a part in these decisions that are being made. This leads me to ask a few questions though. Who gets to pick these people? My answer would be community poll. Names are suggested and collected, and then we vote on who we think fits the bill. People selected can decline, of course, in which case we choose the next highest person. There should at least be 2 TOs and or top players on the rule set board. Trademark pending. How many should be on the board? I think 5 is a good number. Always want to include a tiebreaker in my opinion. Hypothetically speaking, if we've already voted in 2 TOs and 2 top players already, what should be the 5th person? Should it be a TO or a top player? I suggest a second poll to decide, and then the highest person voted not on the board who meets the criteria is chosen. If that player declines, the next person is picked, and so on and so forth. If all options for that criteria decline, the other criteria is considered next, although I doubt we'll ever get to that point. Anyways, those are my general thoughts on the matter. I'd like to hear other people's opinions on the matter and my videos, so please leave a comment and share this with other people. And thanks for coming to my TED Talk.